I wrote this letter at 2:47 in the morning, 16 years ago. He never read it. He is still alive, and I am still silent. Tonight, for the first time, I am going to read it out loud. I'm writing this because if I do not, I will pick up the phone, and if I pick up the phone, I will say something I cannot take back. I wrote that line at my kitchen table. The coffee was cold. The man I wrote it to was supposed to be my brother. This is not a video about revenge. This is not a video about forgiveness. This is a video about what happens when a man decides that the silence will do the work his voice refused to do. I am going to tell you about the night I wrote this letter and why I never sent it. His name for this video is Marcus. I met him when I was 19. I was 20 when I stood next to him at his wedding. I was 26 when his mother asked me to carry the casket at his father's funeral. For 23 years, he was the only man on earth I would have handed my wallet to without looking back. We built something together, a company. Nothing extraordinary, but ours. We signed the papers on a Friday. We shook hands in the parking lot. And he said, I remember the exact sentence, "Whatever happens out there, we sit on the same side of the table." If you are 40 or 50 or 60, and somewhere behind you there is a man who sat on the same side of the table and then stood up and walked to the other side without warning you, I want you to know that you are not weak for still carrying the weight of that afternoon in your chest. Do not mourn the years you trusted him. What matters is what you do with the years you have left. On the 14th of September, he came to my house for dinner. 7:30, a bottle of Malbec. Lamb shoulder. The recipe my wife had made for him a dozen times before. He complimented the lamb. He laughed at a story I had told him 100 times. He asked about my daughter. He held my wife's hand when she walked him to the door. 3 weeks later, I would learn that he had already signed a document that afternoon that ended our partnership before the lamb was even served. There was one moment that night I did not understand until much later. When I walked him to the car, he stopped in the driveway and turned around and looked at the house for a long time. Like a man memorizing a place he was not planning to come back to. I said, "You okay?" He said, "Yeah, just a long day." And then he got in his car and he drove away. 3 weeks. That's how long it took me to understand what he was actually doing on that driveway. The email came on a Monday morning at 6:42. Coffee still brewing. Subject line. 3 words that I will not repeat here. The sender was a lawyer in a firm I had never heard of. I read the first paragraph, standing up. I read the second paragraph, standing up. By the third paragraph, my legs had decided something for me. I sat down in the same chair he had sat in 72 hours earlier. The cushion was still warm from the sun. The glass he had used was still on the counter because my wife had not run the dishwasher yet, and I understood all at once that the dinner had not been a dinner. It had been a goodbye. He had already signed the papers that afternoon. Before the lamb, before the Malbec, before the story about the fishing trip, before "Love you, brother." I did not call him. I spent 3 weeks turning it over in my head, like a stone I could not let go of. I did not call, I did not text, I did not ask him why. I showed up to my own office every morning, and I signed what needed to be signed, and I answered what needed to be answered, and I did not tell anybody that I had just lost the only man on earth I would have handed my wallet to. A lot of you, watching this, are going to want me to say that I did not call him because I was too hurt. That is not why. I did not call him because I understood, the moment I read that email, that there was nothing he could say that was going to unsign that document. The version of him that I had known for 23 years did not exist anymore. And you do not call a man who has already disappeared. On the 21st night after the email, I woke up at 2:47 in the morning. I did not wake up angry. I did not wake up sad. I woke up with sentences already forming in my head as if somebody else had been writing them while I was asleep. I went downstairs. I poured a cup of coffee. I had no intention of drinking. I sat at the kitchen table. I picked up the pen, and I started to write him a letter that I already knew I was never going to send. Marcus, it is 2:47 in the morning. I'm writing this because if I do not, I will pick up the phone. I want you to know 3 things. Then I'm done. Most of you would have sent it. You would have sent it the next morning. You would have CC'd his wife. You would have waited for the phone call that would never come. And then, when the phone call did not come, you would have sent it again. This is the part most men get wrong. A letter that a man does not send does more work than a letter he does. When you send it, you give him the gift of closure. When you fold it and keep it, you leave him standing in a doorway for the rest of his life. I was not going to give Marcus the satisfaction of knowing that I had spent 3 weeks rewriting the same sentence in my head. I was not going to let him walk out of our 23 years with the closure of a fight. The worst thing you can do to a man who has betrayed you is not to scream at him. It is to make him carry the silence for the rest of his life. I folded the letter. I put it in an envelope. I walked to the drawer of my desk and I placed it beside a photograph of the 2 of us from the summer of 1998. I closed the drawer. I did not open that drawer for the next 16 years. For the next 16 years. 16 years passed. I saw him at his daughter's wedding. I stood in the back row and I did not look at him during the vows. I saw him at a funeral. A man we had both known since we were 19. I shook his hand at the reception. I said what you are supposed to say. I walked away. I saw him from across a hotel lobby, in a city neither of us was supposed to be in. He looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us moved. 16 years, and not a single word. Here is what I learned in those 16 years. A man who has been silenced by another man becomes somebody new. Every year that Marcus did not get the phone call from me, his shoulders dropped a little lower. Every wedding where I did not speak to him aged him faster than it should have. The silence I chose at 2:47 in the morning did in 16 years what a lawsuit or a fistfight or a midnight phone call could not have done in 20. 3 weeks ago, I opened that drawer for the first time since 1998. The envelope is in front of me on the table right now. The wax seal is broken. The paper is yellow at the edges. Tonight, for the first time, I'm going to read it out loud. Read it out loud. Marcus, it is 2:47 in the morning. I'm writing this because if I do not, I will pick up the phone, and if I pick up the phone, I will say something I cannot take back. So I am writing instead. I want you to know 3 things. Then I am done. 1. I know what you did. I know about the meeting on the 14th of September. I know you sat across the table from Harrison and you signed a document that restructured the company before we had dinner that night. Before. Not after. Before. You came to my house at 7:30. You brought a bottle of Malbec. You complimented the lamb. You laughed at a story I had told you 100 times. You asked about my daughter. You held my wife's hand. When she walked you to the door, you had already signed it. I'm not writing this to tell you I'm angry. I'm writing this to tell you that I saw it. All of it. Every second. And you underestimated the fact that I would see it. 2. I have spent 3 weeks trying to understand why. Not why you did it. That part was money and pride and the fact that Harrison offered you the thing I would have given you for free if you had asked. I understand that. Men do worse for less. I have done worse for less. I mean, why you came to dinner. You could have signed the document and disappeared. You could have stopped returning my calls. You could have made it cold and transactional, and I would have understood it. I would have hated it, but I would have understood it. But you came to dinner. You held my wife's hand. You laughed at the story about the fishing trip in 1998. You looked at the photograph of my daughter on the mantel, and you said, "She has your eyes." I have turned this over in my head every night for 21 nights, and the only answer I have is this. You came to dinner because you wanted to say goodbye. You already knew that what you had signed that afternoon was going to end us. You did not have the courage to tell me. So you gave yourself one last evening as my brother before the lawyer's email made you into a stranger. That is the part I cannot forgive. Not the signing, the dinner. 3. I will not call you. I will not write this letter a second time, and I will not send the one I'm writing now. I will not make a scene at Thanksgiving. I will not tell your wife. I will not tell your children. I will not tell the men we have known since we were 19. I will not tell your mother, who has always treated me like a second son, and who does not deserve to carry this. I will answer the lawyer in writing through my own lawyer, and I will accept the terms, because fighting them is not worth more years of my life than you have already taken. And when we see each other at the wedding in June, I will shake your hand. I will smile at the photographer. I will stand in the back row, and I will not look at you during the vows. No one will know. No one will ever know, Marcus. That is my gift to you, not because you deserve it, because the people around us deserve to keep the version of us that they believe in. But you will know. Every time you see me across a room for the rest of our lives, you will know that I know, and I will not say a word, and the silence will do what my voice cannot. I loved you like a brother for 23 years. I'm not going to pretend that did not happen. I'm not going to rewrite those years in my head because of one September afternoon. They were real. You were real. And the man you used to be is somebody I will grieve quietly for the rest of my life. But I am not going to mourn him forever. At 2:47 in the morning, at a kitchen table you will never sit at again, I am making a decision. I am not going to let what you did on the 14th of September choose the next 30 years of my life. I am going to read this letter one time. I am going to fold it. I am going to put it in an envelope. I am not going to send it, and when I am finished, I am going to pour the rest of this coffee into the sink, and I am going to turn off the light, and I am going to walk upstairs. And tomorrow I am going to become a man who does not make the mistake of letting someone into his house twice. I'm done. I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. I never sent him this letter. 16 years later, it is still the most important thing I have ever written. Because what I learned at 2:47 on a kitchen table is this: solitude is not the price of becoming untouchable. It is the proof. If this letter reminded you of a man you never confronted, do two things for me. 1. Write down the first line of the letter you never sent. Just the first line. Put it in the comments. I read every one. 2. Drop the anchor phrase. In English. In full. I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. Every repetition is a man deciding not to make the phone call tonight. Next week. The meeting where I realized my best friend had already chosen sides. Stay silent.